Hey, what is going on, guys? Today it's Nick here, and today we got another video coming at you. It's the first strategy video that I'm going to be putting out, and these are videos I like to make to help you with the draft. I know a lot of people really haven't heard of the zero RB strategy, and I really hadn't heard of it. I was using it a lot in my drafts, but I hadn't really heard about the strategy itself until earlier this year. But it's honestly a great strategy. You can't always use it. This is mainly for if you have maybe picks 5 through 12, and I'm just going to be using a 12-team league for this, but I mean, you can use it for any league. It might be a lot more difficult if you're in like a 20-team league, but I mean, not many people play that. Um, but I mean, it still works in like a 10-team league and an 8-team league, but I'm going to be using 12 for this because that's mainly the leagues I'm in. But it's basically you don't take a running back in the top 4 rounds. You take all wide receivers. And you do have to look at your draft, not your draft, you have to look at your settings in your league. Is it going to be 2 wide receivers and a flex? Or is it going to be, like in my leagues, 2 wide receivers, a running back wide receiver spot, and a flex spot? So you can start 4 wide receivers. If you have that, you definitely want to use this strategy if you have picks 5 through 12 because the team that you can create is just dominant here. And the main reason behind the strategy is if you look at the attrition rate of first round running backs throughout the years, it's about 50-50 if they pan out to even be good in the next year. Generally, the top guys, which is why I'm saying you want picks 5 through 12 for this, the top 4 guys, they're basically going to be good. Maybe like 3 out of 4 of them, they're going to be worth the spot you took them at. But the guys at the later end of the first round, you never know. It's like 50-50 if they're just going to fall off the board. But for wide receivers, you look at the top 5, 6, 7 wide receivers, unless they had a big injury, they're never replaced. They're never like, there's never a wide receiver by committee. Like, that's not a thing that happens with running backs. It happens running back by committee, or they get replaced with a backup, the new young guy. But for wide receivers, they're safe, and that's why you want to take them at the top of the draft. So I'm going to pop up 2 teams I had that I simulated in a mock draft, both with the 11th pick in a 12-team league, and I'm going to put them up for you here in a second now. So here it is, just popped up on the screen. You see the team on the left is the RB0 strategy, and the team on the right is you drafting basically the highest player. I ended up drafting DeMarco Murray and Jeremy Hill because they were the best players available. So you look at the RB0 team. Again, this is pick 11. I start off the first 5 picks. Maybe we'll look at the first 6 picks, really. That's what you want to look at. Demaryius Thomas, Odell, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Latavius Murray, and Joseph Randle. All right. All those guys obviously mean the starting lineup, just like the other team. But for this, I know Demaryius Thomas is going to be a top 5 wide receiver. I know Odell's going to have a great year. I know Keenan Allen's going to be great for me in the flex. All right, I know DeAndre Hopkins is going to be great for me in either flex or wide receiver / running back. They're basically the same position. I know all of those guys are going to have solid years for me. They're not going to be taken over by a backup. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, who's he got a competition with? Jalen Strong? Like, there's no one there. He's going to get all the targets. Odell, Victor Cruz come back from an injury that's a lot of people are saying is even worse than ACL injury when you tear that ligament that he tore. Demaryius Thomas, no one, Emmanuel Sanders isn't going to take over for him. And even if he does, like last year, Emmanuel Sanders went off last year. Demaryius Thomas still had a great year. And they just lost Julius Thomas. So those guys are going to be great. Keenan Allen, I think, has a bounce back year, especially with Gates out the first 4 weeks right now. I don't know if he's going to appeal, but first 4 weeks he's suspended. You know all those guys are going to produce. Okay, then you throw in, after that, if you take in the top 4 guys, you can just start taking running backs because later in the draft is where the running backs that pop up might be. You know, Latavius Murray, who Trent Richardson's his competition, if I can get him in the 5th round of a 12-team league, I think he could get 200 touches this year. All right, Joseph Randle, if he stays healthy, he's the number 1 guy in the role that DeMarco had last year. He's going to be great if he's healthy. You know, you go to the next guy, TJ Yeldon. Okay, I'm taking a flyer on him. Maybe he turns out to be good. Later in the draft, I have Ryan Matthews in case Murray gets hurt. Matthews is the guy. Cameron Artis-Payne, he's a rookie, I do believe, this year, and he could be stepping up. So you take these flyers in the later rounds with this RB0 strategy, you know you've got the wide receivers to just dominate. So it doesn't really matter how great your running backs do. And you know what? These guys are pretty solid. Latavius Murray and Joseph Randle. I'm fine starting them as my 1 and 2 if I've got these dominant wide receivers. You look at the team on the right, I don't really have dominant wide receivers. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders is good. Jordan Matthews is good. But they're nowhere near the level that Demaryius Thomas and Odell are, and even DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, I think DeAndre Hopkins is probably better than those guys. But then, I mean, you look at the running backs and they're good. DeMarco Murray and Jeremy Hill, I'd love to have those guys on the team on the left. But what are the odds that both of them keep the starting job and produce like they did last year? I mean, Murray's not going to produce like he did last year. I got him at the 11th spot, and then Hill would be at the 13, 14 spot, I think it would be. There's no way both of those guys are going to produce like they were at the end of last year. And with Jeremy Hill, I mean, he's got Giovanni Bernard coming back. He's got a lot of weapons on that team that they could be using, and there's just no way that they're going to produce at 4 number 1 numbers. And the attrition rate just shows, even when you look at guys and you think they're a sure thing, they're just not. So I'm going to show in a second here what the starting lineups would be for both of these teams, and you can just see by the comparisons, you want the team on the left. So I pulled it up here. If you look at the quarterbacks, I mean, it's basically the same. I drafted both of them in the 11th round. It just so happened that in the other one, in the one on the right, Brady was available, not Tannehill, and I just happened to take him. But you don't really want to look at that because, I mean, I drafted a quarterback in the 11th round for both, so you can't take one team over the other for that. So, I mean, we could just pretend they're both Tannehill or both Brady. It doesn't really matter. You look at the running backs. Obviously, you want the team on the right, but by the end of the year, do you? And that's another thing with the RB0 strategy. You have the ability to drop some of these running backs that you're taking later. I mean, I took Cameron Artis-Payne later. I took Ryan Matthews. You probably wouldn't drop him because he's a good backup just in case. But TJ Yeldon if he doesn't pan out. Or I could even drop Kendall Wright if I wanted to. He's a wide receiver. But every single year, number 1 running backs pop up. You know, C.J. Anderson last year. Jeremy Hill last year. Alfred Morris a couple years ago popped up. There's always these guys, Justin Forsett, that just pop up in like the middle of the season that you're just like, oh, this is an RB1 for the rest of the year, and you just grab them. You don't have to draft them. That doesn't happen with wide receivers very often. It's often the guys that go off are the people you take in the top of the round. So let's say on this team on the left, I have Demaryius Thomas, Odell, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to be my starting lineup unless they're on a bye week, basically every single week. Let's say a C.J. Anderson pops up and I take him. Now I have an RB1 and dominant wide receivers. I'm dominating this league. All I have to wait for is that one guy to pop up, and maybe I have him on my team because I took a bunch of flyers late. If that happens on the team on the right and he pops up, I mean, I already have Murray, I already have Hill. I don't really want to scout the waiver wire for running backs. I'm scouting for wide receivers, and those don't really pop up. So it's a lot easier to build a dominant team with the one on the left because you know you've got those solid guys, and you can scout for running backs because they pop up more. Also, you look at every single matchup with wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, running back, wide receiver, flex. I want the guy on this left team, the RB0 strategy team, I want them every single time, every matchup. I don't care if they're playing the Seahawks every single week. I want these guys over the ones on the right. All right? That's just it. And the running back 1 and 2 on the right, yes, I prefer them, but I don't know every single week if they're going to produce. There's going to be a lot of wear and tear on running backs' bodies. I don't feel comfortable drafting these 2 guys and then having the rest of my team. I mean, I just don't like the team on the right. I mean, if one of those guys fall off, I have DeMarco, and the rest of my team's not that great. I don't have dominant guys. I don't win every matchup. I think the team on the left is really good, and it wasn't like an anomaly that I drafted this team. I mean, this is a team it could have been better. You know, I could have had, instead of Odell, I mean, I have Julio Jones ranked higher. I have AJ Green ranked higher. I mean, Antonio Brown could have fallen to me 11. I would never wait. I'd wait till 5. I'd take him. I mean, potentially, I would not dock you. Doc? I don't think that's the right word. I would not make fun of you. There it is. If you took Antonio Brown at the 1 spot. Number 1 overall. I think wide receivers are so safe. I talked about it in my wide receiver video. I mean, his worst game last year was like 8 receptions for 74 yards. You know, you're consistent with these guys. I know that Murray's going to have a game this year where he scores like 5 points. I know he's going to have a game probably where he scores like 2 points. Hill could have the same game. I will lose if one of them does that. I will not lose if one of my running backs scores that low on this team on the left. So that's the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a comment on what you think about the strategy, and I'll be coming out with more strategy videos later. Peace.